Hello and welcome back to Kind of Filtered, the weird audio-visual journal thing where I share my thoughts and feelings and run them through the sieve a little bit because gotta stay a little bit mysterious and all of that. And as you may suspect, today we're going to be talking about 2021, the year that has just passed, just elapsed. Today is currently the 31st of December, the final day of the year. So, fingers crossed, I make it to the other side and, celebrate 2022 with you guys as well. But yeah, if you are watching this, you are one of those people. You made it to the other side of 2021. Good job. I mean, as facetious as that sounds, that is quite impressive because there's a lot of people who woke up 1st of January 2021, lots of hopes and dreams, and for one reason or another, didn't get to see the other side of it. So, pat yourself on the back a little. Can you hear that? Pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself, and be proud of the fact that you made it through to the other side of the year. I'm going to be talking about my year and a few important lessons and key takeaways I think I got from this year, because us human beings find a lot of significance in the earth going around the sun, and I think with good reason it's a pretty significant thing, and it's usually a good time to reflect upon your life and things that have occurred, and that's what we'll be doing. And maybe there's things you can relate to, maybe there's things that are useful to you, or maybe you'll watch the whole video and be like, wow, that was a waste of X amount of minutes. If that's so, If that's so, I apologize. But without further ado, let's get into the first thing, my first takeaway of 2021. So, first key and primary takeaway from 2021. And the first thing, the first important lesson, and the first things that I discovered, the first takeaway from the year was around distractions and being distracted, because I'm not sure if you've noticed, but in this rather technologically advanced and digitized world, there are a fair few amount of things for you to potentially be distracted by. You got your Netflix, you got your YouTubes, you got your Instagrams, you got your Facebooks, you got your goddamn video games, your adult entertainment, your mangas, your whatever the hell it is. There are so many things for you to get wrapped up in, to get caught up by. And I feel like for me this year I got a better handle on my relationship with being distracted and learning what I find to be distractions and what I find to be actually meaningful. I'm going to go check the exposure on the camera because the sky seems to be getting significantly brighter, and this is the things we deal with. So just give me a moment, check exposure, come back, carry on talking, blah de blah, good stuff. So yeah, distractions, as I was saying. Now, I have had an interesting relationship with all these distractions, I'd say. And I'd say probably the last 3 to 4 years, I have actively, here and there, trying to work on my relationship with them. Because I think at some point I assessed that, one, that in my personal opinion, my relationship with a lot of these distractions was not exactly the healthiest. And two, I had a sneaking suspicion that the things that I was spending a lot of time on, the YouTube, Netflix, video games, etc., were not the things that were actually important to me, and that there were potentially other things that I had wanted to spend my time on, but found myself unable to do. And I feel like I have made some progress. For some context, right, when I was a wee little boy, a wee little laddie boy, little baby boy Simba, I think there's is that a train going by? That's definitely a train. I'll just give it a second. Just give it a second. How you doing though? You all right? I hope the train isn't annoying, bothering you too much. Right when I was a little wee lad, little tiny baby Simba, around the ages of, I don't know. I mean, from the moment I had access to the internet, a video games console, uh, up until probably a few years ago, I would spend pretty much all my time just on all of these things. That was my life. I didn't have a social life. That was what I did. Played video games, I watched YouTube, I binged Netflix. That's all I would do. I come back home from school, from work or whatever, and that would be all I did. And that was my life for a very long time. And I feel like that's not super normal. You know, I think kids just naturally would tend to just gravitate to easy things like adults do. And that's what I did. I spent a lot of time on them, and really and truly, they were the things that made up my personality. And maybe when I was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, that was fine, and maybe those things did align with my values, although I don't think I had even assessed what my values were, or even was even really familiar with the concept of having values. But let's just say, for argument's sake, they aligned with my values, whatever I thought they were at that time. And that was fine, and that was my personality. But over the last few years, after actually sitting down and assessing what things were important to me, what things I want to spend more time on, what are the type of things that actually made me happy and content and gave me fulfillment and what I believed in and all that stuff, I think I started to realize that these things I had sunk a significant amount of time on were not the things most important to me. Not to say they didn't serve any purpose. I've made lifelong friends through these things, through talking about these things, through interacting with these things, and I have met people and had experiences that I wouldn't trade for the universe. But I think there's a point at which you realize that you're not the person you once were, and you believe different things and want different things. And I think I realized that a while back. But the issue is, and I think a lot of people have probably been in the same situation that I've been, where you assess this, you realize this, and you realize the issue is walking away from all that stuff is not as easy as just saying, I'm done. Because these things just trap you in. They suck you in a way that's just so insidious. And it's so hard to pull yourself out of it, even if you really want to. And I think that can also become confusing, because when you're telling yourself you don't want to do these things anymore, but your body and your mind keeps gravitating towards these things and you're spending hours and hours of your time onto them, you start to question that maybe your assessment was wrong. Maybe your assessment is wrong. And I think that's what I wanted to find out for myself. And I think I finally did that this year. So, enough beating about the bush. Basically, around September-ish, November, I did a dopamine fast. Not going to get into the weeds about it, but stop doing some stuff. Helps your brain. Stop being wacky. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. There'll be a video in the description from people with qualifications, or a person in particular with qualifications. Shout out my boy Dr. K in the house. Now, I've done these before, and I've gone through the 30 days, but I feel like this time around it was different, and the outcome was different. And I think the outcome was different because of my approach to it and the mindset shift that came with doing it. I think usually when I do these things, I'm usually coming from the mindset that I'm depriving myself of something, that there's something that I need, or I want, or that is pivotal to my happiness and fulfillment, that I'm depriving myself off from these next 30 days. But I think, I don't know why, but for some reason, I think I wanted a long-term solution. I wanted to change things for good, and I really sat down to think about my relationship. I don't even remember what it was. It was like the most offhanded thing ever. It might have been like a book I read or something, but it made me really sit down and ask myself, or just realize, more so should I say, that I didn't need any of those things to be happy. Every time I did these things when I wasn't watching YouTube or playing video games, I told myself there's something I was depriving myself of happiness. And in those moments of boredom, I'd want to go back to them. I'd be waiting for that 30 days to end. And I don't know why, but at some point I realized I don't need these things to be happy or to be fulfilled. And I think I even came to realize that I think my life moves in a more positive trend and towards greater happiness and fulfillment without these things in my life. And I think that was a really important and monumental shift in mindset for me this year, realizing that I didn't need these things anymore to be happy, and that I was happier without them. And I think realizing that I didn't need these things was so freeing, you know? Like it felt like I was letting go, and it felt like I was lighter for it, you know? It felt like there was something that kept tying me down to not just, you know, these material possessions, to a digital world, but tying me down to a person I didn't want to be anymore, to a person I decided I wanted to not be, in a sense. And it was beautiful. And even simple things like being able to leave the house without headphones and not having a panic attack on the train, because you're like, oh my god, what am I going to do for the whole day? I can't listen to anything. Oh no. I like just leaving the house and being like, oh, I don't have headphones. All right. I was like, what do I even need them for anyways? Do you know what I mean? And it was so nice. Granted, there was some downsides. I forgot my phone in a Burger King, which would have been impossible before because I'd always be changing music and stuff. But because my phone became such a background object, almost got it lost in a Burger King. Got it back though, so that's cool. So shout out to Burger King for not stealing my phone. Much appreciated, dog. But yeah, realizing that I was distracting myself. And that was, I think, the biggest thing when I say distractions. You realize when you spend so much time in just listening to your own thoughts and not being constantly inundated with new information and new stimuli, that you are constantly, all you're ever doing is just distracting yourself from what's going on in your life and in your head. And that's what I was doing. And it felt so good to finally have some space to address it all, some space to deal with it. And it's not always nice. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. You have an awkward conversation with someone that you weren't ready to have today, and you don't have some music to escape to or a YouTube video to not think about it. You just have to sit there. You have to sit there and deal with it. You have some interaction with a romantic interest and it didn't go the way you wanted it to. You're just going to have to vibe, my guy. You know what I mean? And, you know, it's a bit uncomfortable, but it's nice in a sense that you're dealing with it on your own. The fact that I felt like I was dealing with all that stuff on my own without the aid of another thing was so freeing. And I think I realized it's the life that I think I've desired to lead, but never felt it was possible for me to do. And I think next year I'd like to go forward and try and address that further. Should I say? Does that make any fucking sense? Address that further. Try and pursue that further. Jesus fucking Christ. But I think now it's like a case of figuring out. I think if we're talking about going forward, because that's what it's all about, talking about what we learned and how we move forward. I think going forward now, Jesus Christ. It's about figuring out where that stuff does fit into my life. Because after having since done it, I've kind of dabbled back in and fell into the traps and come back out. And I think I realized that, you know, obviously that stuff can be important to me. I want to pursue a career in filmmaking potentially further. And, you know, there's other things I find interesting, content creation. And, you know, being able to watch a video here and there, or a movie here and there, and a Netflix series here and there is useful for me. Yeah, I do learn stuff, and seeing, like, you know, lighting and cinematography practices actually consolidated and used in actual stuff is really useful, and seeing how people write stuff and for the narrative, and it's all useful stuff for me. But figuring out how to actually fit that stuff in my life going forward, I think is going to be the biggest challenge. I think it's really easy to just cut that stuff off completely, but it's hard to bring it back into your life in a non-destructive way. And I think that's how I want to go forward. But I think I'm coming to the point where I'm accepting that if I can't figure out a way to bring it back to my life non-destructively, I'm happy to basically let it go, because there are things far more important to me than all those other things. That is not to say I don't like those things. I like video games. I like YouTube videos. I love YouTubers. There's people on Twitch I love. You know, there's tons of interesting stuff to watch on Netflix, although most of it is garbage. There is some diamonds in the rough. If I can't bring that stuff into my life less destructively, I'm sorry, I'd rather sacrifice that stuff so I can read more books, play more guitar, spend more time with my family, and build upon myself, because that's so much more important to me. And if the sacrifice means that I don't get to watch some Netflix and don't keep up with YouTube and have to let some Twitch content to the side, I'm perfectly okay with that. There's another train. It's going the other way. The other one's going. This one's going. Just let it. Okay. Lesson number 2. What else did we learn? 2021, 365 days. Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot this has wheels. Let's be careful. I forgot the chair has wheels. Ooh, we learnt about balancing various things, the juggling act that is existence. That's what I learnt about last year. Last year, I learnt about balance in an actual realistic way, not in the I can have it all kind of way. I think I've always accepted that in life, you make concessions for the sake of one thing or the other. To pursue one thing, you give up something. You know what I mean? Whenever you do something, you open one door, you close a bunch of others. You make concessions. And I think I finally learnt about true balance and how to balance and what to balance in my life. So I'm currently pursuing and progressing through the career of filmmaking. And the truth is, I've had some doubts about whether or not I do actually love filmmaking. And I love the people I work with. I love them dearly. I love everybody in my circle. But it's not the most exciting stuff. And it's not stuff that I think directly aligns with exactly where I'd want to be. And I'm currently at a crossroads where, depending on how much it seeks to give back, I don't know. It might just be it for me on the career side, on filmmaking. I might, at least as a career, as a job, as like a full-time career, it might be it. And I might move on to something else completely, entirely, and just do it as a hobby. But what that meant is discovering that freelance filmmaking may not be the vibe, or filmmaking in general, the industry of video creation may not be my vibe and is not really feeding my soul anymore, meant that I had to start giving attention to other things. Because I would work so hard on something that wasn't giving me back, there was a lot of finishing the week feeling empty, feeling like I was running on less than empty. And I realized that there were other parts of my life that I had been neglecting and could get away with neglecting because the job and the thing I was doing was giving back enough to ignore everything else. And I realized that I couldn't keep neglecting those things anymore. And this is kind of what led up to me doing a dopamine fast in the end, and then rediscovering all the things I love. But I learned about balancing things and trying to do multiple stuff, not just for the sake of, making sure you have a work-life balance, but for the sake of keeping me stimulated, mentally speaking. Because I think I'm a person who, unless the one sole thing I'm working on is extremely mentally stimulating, I need a lot of things going on. I have a lot of interests. There's a lot of things I like doing. And I always need things happening to keep me mentally stimulated. And I think beyond that, even, I think having multiple things helps me be consistent at those things, because when I have just one thing going on, I find that I hyper-focus a lot. So I get really zoned in about the specific amount of progress I'm making and how well I'm doing or not doing at that thing, to my own detriment. And then I end up not doing it because I feel like I'm not doing enough, and then I try and do too much, and then I end up falling and dropping it to the wayside. And then I tell myself that I don't have time for it because of work and other stuff. But I've learned this year about doing multiple things, about playing guitar and reading and hanging out with family and working on, my job and side projects and hanging out with friends and trying to do a multitude of different things. And in a sense, it's slightly more exhausting. And I definitely have complained about it internally, maybe to a couple friends, about how hard it is to strike a decent balance and how tiring it can be. But it's far more mentally stimulating. And I think this goes back to one of the things I learned about, after being distracted is, post-distraction topic is, oftentimes there's things you want to do, or at least for me, there's oftentimes things I want to do. Let me not speak for everyone. There's oftentimes things I'd like to do, and things I'd like to, Jesus Christ, I need water. Things I'd like to do, and things I'd like to progress in and focus on. But it's hard to do those things. And because it's difficult, we end up just not doing them. And we tell ourselves that we didn't want to do them anyways, or they weren't that big a deal to us, so they're not worth the effort. And I find that a lot of things I want to do are really hard. And balancing various things is one of those things. But I get the most amount of satisfaction when I'm juggling all these things, and all these things are on the fire and nothing's burning. And that to me is such a genuinely mentally stimulating and fulfilling feeling. And I think I'm learning that next year it's all about keeping things on the fire, a lot of things on the hob, a lot of things on the cooker, but things that you can easily pay attention to. Instead of trying to do 2 hours a day of a thing, just doing 30 minutes a day of a few different things, and looking at the progress in the course of a few years rather than a few days or months. I definitely remember a few tutorials, or YouTube searches, should I say, and I'm sure we've all done this, where it's like how to learn X in 30 days or whatever. And I'm like, I don't really need to learn something in 30 days. There's no urgency like that. There's nothing I need to learn in 30 days. It just, I want to get the progress now, and I don't have to commit to something, because that's what you do. You're committing to something, and I think the commitment is something. Committing to things has terrified me in the sense of hobbies. And I think next year, let's commit to some stuff. Let's commit to just taking a few different things slowly, balancing it out, and making sure I have different varying things going on. I think that's definitely an important thing as well. Is sometimes I will tell myself I'm going to vary stuff up, and I find that I'm just working on 5 different filmmaking projects. But I think it's now going to be about working on a filmmaking project, or a hobby, like learning a skill, exercising type of thing, maybe a social activity, and working on a few different things, music as well, and making me feel like I'm living a more balanced life. Just even adding reading and playing guitar into my life has made me feel more balanced. You spend X amount of time, hours looking at screens, whether it's the back of a monitor or your computer screen, and then you step away, play some guitar for an hour or so, you go read a book for a few hours, and you feel like you've done a few different things in your day, or then you spend some time with family. And I think having that balance in my life is something that I'm going to strive towards, or want to strive towards, going forward in my life. Not just next year, and this is the case for everything, not just next year, just going forward. And on that note, very nicely transitioning from that topic, is the matter of being far more consistent. I think this year I learned to be a little bit more consistent, and learned to take things a little slower, but consistently slow. And I think one of the biggest lessons that taught me that was a very simple thing, was taking my driving theory exam, which is in the United Kingdom. You must do your driving theory exam so that they can be sure that you are safe to be on the roads. You know what the signs look like and all of that goodness. You know what the triangle means. You know what the circle with the 30 and the 60, and you know what to do so that you don't end up hitting an old lady on the M25 or the M11. Although if an old lady is on the M11 or the M25, she's probably asking for it, because what are you doing on there? You're not supposed to be walking on the M25. But I did that, and it's been something I've been meaning to do for a really long time. A very simple thing, not even that hard necessarily, but one, I was really scared of failing it. That was like a big one. It's like I really didn't want to fail. I wanted to get it right first time. But the big one was I wanted to get it done. I was so obsessed with getting it done quickly that I didn't get it done at all. I kept telling myself I have to find a week where I can just spend 2 hours, 3 hours doing it and just get it all learned in like a week. Instead, I just went, you know what, before work for 30 minutes, I'm just going to study the required materials, do the practice questions, and just prep for it. 30 minutes a day. Keep it really simple, keep it really easy. And it took, maybe it took a few weeks to, really get all the stuff into my brain and feel like I was ready to actually take the exam. But, 3 weeks went by, I think, and I did it. And I did pretty all right. I got like 47 out of 50 on the exam. I forgot what I got on the hazard perception, but I passed it. And now I'm ready to move on to the next stage, which is now learning how to actually move the vehicle and, come closer to getting my driver's license. But if I had just kept saying I needed to do it all in a week or whatever, it would have never happened. And being okay with taking it slowly and getting my driving test ready to do in a month, one, made me far more confident, because I felt like I'd really spent the time to learn the things and prep for the test, even though I probably could have got it done in a week if I'd crammed. It's a really easy exam. Most people get it done like overnight if you really want to. Took my time slowly with me and really took some time to understand the material, and I was consistently practicing, and it felt so good to just show up every day and try my best at it. And I think I'm learning the importance of just showing up every day and trying your best at it. And the thing is, some days will suck. Some days will be really bad. And I learned this, especially this lesson, especially when I spent a month practicing art. You see, I told you I do too much. I spent a month practicing art in 2020, in November. I think I dedicated 2 hours a day to practicing art. Just like for a variety of reasons. But I did that. And one thing I learned is when you're practicing every day, you've got to start looking at things in the grander scale. And this is how you stay consistent, because there were days where I studied art and I felt like I wasn't making any progress. We got another train. Yeah, there were days where I'd study art and I'd feel like I made zero progress whatsoever. It would be torture. Those 2 hours would be miserable. It felt like nothing made sense. It felt like nothing was working. I felt like I wasn't ever going to get closer to my goal of being a better artist. And those days would sometimes go on for it would sometimes be 3 to 4 days straight of showing up and feeling like nothing is happening. But you just sit there and you grind and try. And that will happen. And sometimes it'll be a week of that. And you have to learn to look at the grander scale and be like, I'm here for the long haul. A week of really shitty art days is okay, because I'm going to be here next week. I'm going to be here the week after that and the week after that. And if we have 3-4 weeks of shitty art days, we change something up, because I'm going to be here the week after that and the week after that. And knowing that you're going to show up again and again and again makes it easy to get through those days, because you know it doesn't matter. That 1 week in the next 5 years of practicing art means nothing. It literally is insignificant in the 10 years that you will be practicing art if you actually want to be a good artist. It means nothing, because you're going to be here next week, the week after that, and the week after that for years and years and years and years to come. So it doesn't matter that you had a few really shitty days. That's going to happen. Same has happened while practicing guitar. There's some string of days where I'll just be playing guitar and I feel like my hands aren't doing it, the riffs aren't making sense, and chord changes are being difficult, and everything just doesn't feel like it's coming together. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, of just 2 weeks of shitty guitar days, it just all of a sudden you pick up the guitar and it just suddenly makes sense. And you have to be prepared for that. And being consistent and showing up, even if it's just a little bit every day, allows for you to be able to get over those humps, because you know you're going to be there every day. But I think the scariest thing about consistency, and I feel like nobody ever talks about this, is consistency requires commitment. To be consistent, you have to be pre-committed to something already, to be committed to doing this for the long haul. And I feel like this is really important as well when learning a new skill for me, is learning to be committed for a long period of time. I think nowadays, going forward, I'm going to try and commit myself to skills to just in the most brute force way, and be stick with it for 3 to 6 months. It's like treating yourself like a kid. You know, how kids will be listen, Johnny, you got to stick with it for a few more months, and then if you really don't like it, power through. And you know, that's actually a really wise thing to do, because sometimes you'll start a thing, because there's a thing called, and this is the last point before we move on, there's a thing called the dip. There's a whole book about it by Seth Godin. Shout out to my boy Seth Godin. He's not really my boy. We don't talk like that, but you get my point though. Shout out to Seth Godin. I'll probably put a link for it in the description. But it talks about this concept about there's a point when learning a skill where at the beginning it kind of goes up like that, and you feel like you're learning a lot. And then around the intermediate stage, beginner intermediate stages, it starts to the ease of the skill and learning goes like that. And you enter the dip stage. And the dip stage is the most frustrating, because it feels like you're making no progress at all. And you always have to go through it. It'll happen eventually. And it's after the dip that you find out how you feel about something, right? And you sometimes have to power through the dip. And the thing is, the dip can come and go. Sometimes the dip will just be a good 2-3 weeks straight of just shitty days of that skill, and then it comes back up. And sometimes the dip will come in waves, days at a time, and you have to be prepared for that to happen. And you just have to kind of power through that dip and see where you're at afterwards. And I think it's really important wisdom to commit to something. And I think nowadays, in the kind of fast culture that we have, committing to something like a skill for a long time is scary, which is why videos on YouTube, type in any skill you want to look for and look for doing it in a day, doing it in 30 days. It's always the biggest view. Show me a video on YouTube that says how to become an artist in 10 years. That's doing numbers. Nobody wants to watch that, but that's the truth. You want to become a professional artist? You got 5 to 10 years spare on you? Right? Nobody wants to hear that, because you're committing yourself to something, right? We all want to do everything and have everything. And I think our culture is so built upon that. We are so used to getting everything like that and having anything and everything we want at our doorstep and our fingertips instantly. And I think we've lost the appreciation to some degree for committing to something, to the freedom that comes with the commitment. You know what I mean? Because when you commit to something, there is a freedom that comes with that. You know, you commit to being an artist. Yes, you've closed off maybe being a musician in that time, or learning a language or whatever other thing. But now you're going to learn how to express yourself artistically through painting and drawing. And that is freeing. And that's beautiful. But it's scary. It's scary to commit yourself, I think, especially when we're so used to having everything so quickly. But I'm learning to take things slow, commit myself to a few things, and just appreciate the good and bad days that come with being consistent and showing up. Because that's what you got to do. Just you got to show up and keep showing up. And yeah, usually works out. Yeah. What's the next lesson? Okay, so comparison and the opinions of others. Now, ever since I read the book, The Courage to Be Disliked, I have very much changed my feelings on how important the opinions of other people and how other people view you are. And I think that has been a very useful thing. Now, learning how important they are and taking it to practice, two different things. And I feel like for the last year or so, I've been on the journey of trying to care less about other people's views of me and how other people perceive me and how other people feel about me. That is not to mean that I go out my way to antagonize people, but I think learning to live your life honestly is a very difficult thing to do. And I think a lot of us, myself included, have a tendency to not live our life completely honestly because we're afraid of how other people will view us and how other people will think of us. Because to be disliked is a scary thing. Human beings are extremely social creatures, and the fear of being outcasted is not an unfounded one. It is perfectly fair and it's perfectly reasonable, but I think at the same time, it's not worth worrying about. I think this year I've learned that it's important to live my life honestly, to my values, to my beliefs, to be open to change, to be open to criticism, to listen to people, but not to live my life in a dishonest manner just for the sake of pleasing people and being liked. I think, you learn very quickly how fickle people's opinions of you are. And in my own little ways, I've had all sorts of experiences this year that have taught me how fickle the opinions of people that I used to value from other people can be, especially of myself. And it's not worth it. It's not worth worrying about it. I especially like praise. A lot of us seek praise from other people. And it's nice to be praised. It's nice to be appreciated. But I think to live your life seeking that and in search of that is so dangerous, because you end up doing things just for the sake of other people. And I think I've noticed that in my life, the opinions of other people have gotten in the way of me doing what I felt to be best and being who I actually am. I think in a lot of ways. This is a difficult one for me to say, because I feel like we need a little bit of background. I think in my last video, my last Kind of Filtered, we talked about how I've kind of been on a self-improvement thing. And I think the truth is, and I probably said this about the self-improvement thing, is the minute I started doing self-improvement, I realized I did not like who I was. I did not like the person I was, and I wanted to do a lot to change that person. And I think ever since I've started changing myself as a person, or changing myself as a person, not becoming someone else, but changing who I am, and changing my beliefs and my habits and mannerisms, all that stuff. As much as the more I progressed and tried to change, I think I have constantly sought the validation of others to prove to myself that the change had been made. The validation of peers, the validation of colleagues, the validations of employers, of families, of of romantic interests or just the opposite sex in general, to validate that the changes I made were good. And I think because I didn't develop any deep internal value systems for what good change looked like. I never set any goals for what I wanted to become. They weren't based upon any values. It was just improve, get better, get X, Y, or Z thing. That I was constantly seeking other people to be like, yeah, good job, Simba. Yeah, man, that's sick. Good job, man. And I realized, especially in 2020, I realized this, that sometimes I will live my life and be doing in what I would seek to be amazing stuff, to be living my life to what you ever had you ever had a feeling, you ever been just had a vibe, or just like a day, maybe like a week, where you just feel right, where you're just living your life and moving and acting in a way that just feels correct. It almost feels like you're in accordance with what you're supposed to be. You feel like you're living in accordance with who you're supposed to be. And if you're waiting for other people to validate that, you will live in accordance with who you're supposed to be, and you'll feel that, but nobody else is affirming that for you. Nobody else is telling you, yeah, dude, you are vibing. I've noticed you're vibing. And if nobody says that and you're waiting for other people's validation, you will start to doubt whether or not what you're doing is correct. And I think I've had moments in my life where I have lived in accordance with myself, where I was being honest, and because either there was no reaction or negative reactions, I doubted myself. And I think I no longer, I think now I'm trying to live a life of just being more honest. And I think the thing I've learned about being more honest is, in pursuing a more honest life, is I might lose people, is the truth. If I am always just authentically myself, like actually just myself, not censoring myself, not trying to be who everyone, Jesus Christ, I'm so gassy. I'm trying to be who I think will be the best person for this situation, because that's what I do right now. That's what I have been doing, is I always enter a situation and be like, how do I be the Simba for this situation, the Simba for that situation? And do you know what? And here's and it kind of probably ties back into the just be yourself video, is I think you need to get to a point where you're authentically being yourself, but you're also in tune with what things and characteristics of yourself you're not a fan of. Right? So trying to work on those characteristics, which is where being open to criticism is, which is where it's a really difficult thing, right? Just to be authentically you. But I think being in tune with who you are and being in tune with what you'd like to change and what characteristics you don't like. And then once you've assessed that, being authentically the best version of yourself, you got to just doing that is scary, because you are at threat of alienating people. Right? And I have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with the fact that some people are going to just not like who I am. And do you know what's scary about that, I think, for me, is whenever I'm being someone else, some other version of me, not the most authentic me, it's okay if people don't like that, because I can just change that, because that was never really me. If I choose to authentically be myself, there's something about it that cuts deeper, because when people dislike me, they dislike me. Not some other version, not some caricature. They just don't like Simba Manemo. They're just not a fan of that guy. And I have to be okay with that, which is crazy. And the thing is, right, because I spent so much time being a caricature of myself in so many different situations, I think I have to be prepared for some people to just not like me. Some people who may like me now to just be like, wow, I don't vibe with Simba anymore. And I think I have to be okay with that, which is difficult. It is really difficult. Luckily, in all my instances in which I've tried to be most authentically myself, it's been positive. I think, luckily, I'm at a point with myself where I think I've developed my social skills, and I think I'm developing my traits and interests to a point where I think the person I am is pretty okay. And I kind of like that person. The best version of me, not the version of me that stays up at 4 o'clock in the morning watching Kitchen Nightmares. Me and that guy need to talk. But the version of me that's usually on top of shit, I like that guy. I'm a big fan of him. And I think being that person more is good. Being willing to just have a conversation and just nerd out about books and the music I've listened to, or the anime I have watched up to this point, or my love for Pixar movies and my undying allegiance to the Toy Story franchise. Being okay with that. being okay with doing that everywhere, because that's who I am. I shouldn't go one place and feel the need to only talk about X or Y because that feels right. I should always just be me. If I fucking love Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear is my homeboy, he's my homeboy everywhere. Okay, Buzz? You're my homie everywhere, Buzz. Do you understand that? I won't be a fake for you. And some people will be like, wow, no, fuck that. Ratatouille is a better movie. And I'll be like, that's okay. You can go fuck yourself. Toy Story is better. And we'll fight and we can't be friends. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. Because that's who I am. And I think I need to be okay with that, while still being open to change, listening to criticism, and seeing what things I think are valid. These are all really important stuff, and I think these all require developing a really good internal dialogue. There's a word a counselor once told me, a locus of something. That's something I've learned, and I think I'm going to try and be a more authentic version of myself in all realms of my life, because it's just easier. It's just easier. It's so difficult trying to be so many different people to everyone, and it's going to be hard. And I have to be prepared to for some people to not like me, and I think that's okay. I think that is fine. But yeah, that has been it for me, and that's what I've learned. If anything in there resonated with you, let me know. And honestly, I'd love to know what are some big things that you've learned this year. If you have an answer, feel free to hit me up anywhere. Instagram, Twitch, I am live on there sometimes. Link will be in the description for that. Here in the comment section, if you got my phone number, bro, hit me up. Hit my line, I got my phone number, bell me up. You know what I mean? And yeah, if there's anything you agreed with, and more importantly than anything else, is there anything you disagreed with? Anything you said and you felt like, Simba, you're a fucking idiot? I'd love to know, because I am a 22-year-old and all I want to do is learn and be open to change. Have a beautiful 2022. They will be sick, not because of any other greater, grander world event, but because you are a strong individual and you will handle what life throws at you. Because that's all you can do, is try to handle everything life throws at you. And if 2021 wasn't sick, if you lost some people, if you lost some things, if things didn't go your way, my deepest apologies. There's nothing we can do about that. That is life. And hopefully next year, life won't hit you too hard. And if it does, all you can do is be prepared and hopefully use these lessons from this year to become better and more resilient to it. I wish y'all the best. Take care. Stay safe. Love y'all, even though I don't really know any of you, but it's still love. It's like there's different levels of love. There's like a familial love. There's like a friend love, romantic love, and then there's like the love you have for random strangers on the internet you've never met, which is like a really weird one. Parasocial relationships and all that stuff. It's really cool. Anyways, but yeah, have a good one. Hopefully, let's aim for. This is video number 1 of the year. Let's aim for 2 videos this year. Let's aim for a second one. There's a train going by, but we're going for it. Let's aim for a second video this year on the channel. But if you do want to see me around, like I said, twitch.tv/SwizzyIV is the best place to find me. I'm usually live. We do some work. We do some co-working streams, so we get work done together. And it's sick. And it's fun. Yeah, hopefully some fun things. I'm excited for 2022. I'm actually genuinely like childlike excited. So like I hope you are too. Yeah, 2022 we're gonna buy some fucking Vaseline because my lips are so dry. Jesus Christ. That's what we're gonna do. Anyways, like I said, love you people. Internet love. Don't be weird. It's not like a real kind of, it's like an internet love. Okay? Don't be weird about it. It's not like I don't know you. So it's like internet. You get me? You understand? Okay? Don't be weird. Please, okay? Don't be weirder than me. That's all I ask. All right? Cool. All right, goodbye. Have a good one. It's been beautiful. Anyways, I'm gonna go back inside. I really need to pee so badly. You didn't need to know that, but I do need to pee. I need to bring this chair back inside. Oh my god, the things I do for content. Oh my god. All right, take care. Stay safe. Don't go wear a mask. Don't be fucking stupid. Wear a mask, please. That's all I ask. Wear a mask. If you have to go somewhere, wear a mask. All right, don't kill someone's grandmother. Okay? All right. Love you. Bye. All right, let's do another clap.